If you've ever wondered why your seeds aren't germinating, listen up, because we're going to go over the top 5 reasons why seeds fail to germinate. Seeds are alive, and they require proper conditions to be able to produce healthy seedlings, which produce healthy plants, which produce healthy fruits. At seedcatalog.com, we strive to provide the highest quality seed for our customers. We take our germination rates very seriously, and we stand by our product. But even with the highest quality seeds, your seeds can still fail to germinate if you don't take into consideration these 5 points that we're about to go over. Now, we want you to be a successful gardener, and we want to celebrate that with you. So join with us as we walk through these 5 very important points in germinating your seeds. Number 1, start with a trusted seed supplier. Now, seeds have a shelf life, and depending on how they're stored, they can last for years or even a shorter length of time if they're not properly stored. It's best to keep your seeds in a cool, dry, dark, and moisture-free environment. Those food-grade storage containers work perfectly for a situation like this, but seeds over time will lose their veracity, and whereas you may start with a 90% germination rate, in other words, 9 out of 10 of your seeds will sprout. After year 3, if properly stored, you may be down to 7 or 8 out of 10 of those seeds. So they lose their viability as time goes on, but they're still good seeds. They just reduce the germination rate as they are stored, as time goes by. So make sure your seeds, number 1, come from a trusted supplier, but number 2, make sure you store them properly. Don't keep them in an outbuilding where they're exposed to extreme heat or humidity or possibly even moisture. That's really bad for seeds. Keep them in a cool, dry, dark place that's moisture free. And again, those food grade storage containers work great. And your seeds can last for years. We've successfully sprouted seeds that have been stored for 10 years properly, just as a test. So make sure they're stored properly. Number 2, make sure your seeds are not stolen. Rats, mice, birds, bugs, worms, they all love seeds. So when you plant your seeds, if you're doing direct sow, make sure that they're not stolen. People sometimes wonder, well, my cucumbers didn't germinate. Well, the seed's not there. The seed has been stolen. So make sure that you look for signs of rodents or pests that might be around. Try to put preventatives around there. And if you're questioning, it's been 2-3 weeks and your seeds haven't popped up, maybe just look to see if the seed's even down there. A lot of times the seeds are stolen by these pests or rodents or birds, and you don't even know it. So make sure the seed's still in the ground before you give up on your germination. Number 3, make sure your seeds are in well-cultivated soil. So you need to separate whether you're starting indoors, and you can start indoors in something like this, a flat tray. These are easy to pick up at your big box store, or even just like an egg carton. A compostable, recyclable egg carton works great for compartmentalizing your seed. But regardless of where you start it, they need to be in well-cultivated soil. Now, you can do a soil test. There's an old farmer's trick where you can scoop a mason jar or a peanut butter jar of soil, maybe like 1 or 2 cups, and then you fill it with water. You can go Google this and find out. You'll find out how much sand, how much silt, and how much clay you have in your soil mixture, and that'll tell you what you need to add to your soil. Maybe you need to add some vermiculite or some peat moss or some compost or manure or whatever. Make sure your soil is well cultivated before sowing your seed. Otherwise, your seed's not going to thrive. Your plant's not going to thrive, especially if your pH isn't balanced. And you can get a really cheap pH test meter at a big box store, or you can get a more expensive one online that's electronic. But make sure your pH is set properly for your seeds, and make sure the soil is well cultivated. Number 4, seeds require specific planting depths and water requirements. So when you're planting your seeds, don't just throw them in there and hope everything is good. Read the back of the envelope or look online. Find out the planting depths. For example, if you were to take a cucumber and plant a cucumber, you want to plant that cucumber seed at about an inch depth. If you plant a tomato seed at an inch depth, that tomato seed is likely going to rot, or it's going to sprout and die before it even reaches the soil, before it even reaches the surface rather. So make sure that your planting depth is considered and adhered to when you're planting your seed, whether you're doing direct sow or starting indoors. And then the watering requirement. You want well-drained soil. I can't stress that enough. If your soil is not well-drained, it's going to retain all that moisture and it's going to rot your seeds and they won't germinate. So soil depth and well-drained soil are key to making sure your seeds germinate properly. Number 5, and this is where 90% of people miss the mark. They think I failed or my seeds failed. This is so important. Number 5 is that seeds require specific temperatures in order to germinate. And this is why you've got to keep track of your first frost and last frost dates for your hardiness zone and know where you're at. But when you're sprouting your seeds, you've got to understand that different seeds have different requirements for germination. For example, if you were to take a national pickling cucumber, that cucumber seed, when you plant it, assuming again the right depth, the right cultivated soil, everything else is right, when you plant that seed, if it's 50 degrees outside, it's not going to germinate. They require 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit in order to germinate. So if you plant that national pickling cucumber seed in 60 to 70 degree soil, not just the temperature outside, and people think, oh, it's 70 degrees outside. Well, your soil may still be 50 degrees. So if you're doing direct sow, make sure that the soil temperature is at the right temperature. But if you plant that national pickling cucumber and it's 60 to 70 degrees, then in 7 to 10 days, you should have a sprout coming right up out of the ground. If you planted a beefsteak tomato, red beefsteak tomato, at the same time, and the soil temperature was 60 to 70 degrees, it's likely not going to germinate because it requires 70 to 80 degree Fahrenheit soil temperature in order to germinate. So people plant these seeds all at the same time and they think, oh gee, my cucumbers came up, but my tomatoes failed. Sometimes that tomato will even come up a few weeks later. So you plant it and normally it's got a 7 to 10 day germination period where it'll pop up out of the ground. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4. I've seen it even as late as 2 or 3 months later from leftover seed from the previous season. So it's so vitally important that you make sure that the soil temperature, not the outdoor ambient temperature, your soil temperature is correct for sprouting these seeds. If you're starting indoors, make sure you've got a nice heat lamp, like I've got behind me, or a warming mat or something to get that temperature up in order to sprout those seeds. And as soon as you do, you've got to take other precautions as far as getting them to light in the right distance so they don't get leggy. But make sure that you've got the right soil temperature. Don't give up. Don't think I've failed or my seeds have failed. Make sure you've got the right depth, water, soil conditions. Make sure nothing has stolen your seed, and make sure that you've got the right temperature of that soil. Well, again, at Seed Catalog, we want you to be a successful gardener. We want to partner with you in that, and we will rejoice with you when you eat that first piece of fruit from your garden. So we hope these 5 tips were helpful. We hope that these were beneficial to you, and come back and visit us for more great tips.